My name is Paige Rightmire, and today I'm going to be talking about Marlene Kim's policies to end the gender gap in the United States. My first quotes are found on page 250 of the first edition of the textbook. They use evidence-based examples to quote-unquote counter the argument that women are less career-focused or motivated. Scholars find that even after adding controls for job aspirations and occupational preferences, women earn less than men. Some of these examples are seen in the bulleted quotes, as even when attending the same college and having the same college major and GPA, women earn less than men. And when resumes for similarly qualified women and men were left in restaurants, men received higher callback rates in higher paid restaurants. These examples and the point itself are greatly important as they combat the research and evidence that others use to make illegitimate arguments, because the experiments they are using do not contain a control group. As soon as controls are added, a majority of the arguments that claim women are paid less by their own choices are debunked. This highlights not only the deficiency in the argument against the inequality between men and women, but also the fearful reality that information can be misconstrued in order to portray the message a certain person or group wants to be heard. Therefore, we must take this point and know that we must use critical thinking in all information given to us to make valid opinions. Now, Marlene Kim uses this data not only to portray that the wage gap is truly an issue in today's world, but also shares the solutions she believes should be implemented in order to minimize the gap. She places these solutions into 5 categories, including enforcing existing equal opportunity statutes, family-friendly policies, comparable worth, unionization, and pay secrecy. We will talk about 3 that stood out to me the most for time's sake. The first is enforcing existing equal opportunity statutes. She states on page 251 that affirmative action requires that companies that receive government contracts examine the gender and racial composition of their workplaces in broad occupational categories and compare this with the composition of worker available to work. When workplaces are deficient in the representation of women or minorities, employers take affirmative steps so that gender and racial composition in their workplace reflects the composition of the workers available. Now, affirmative action was integrated into my civics class and college discoveries class in high school. Both of these classes gave me a great perspective of both what it was, how it played into college admissions, and also how the two parties of government argued over it. I often found it humorous listening to fellow students, especially white males, who would claim, "I didn't make it because I'm a white guy." This was referring to affirmative action's role in the admissions process. Marlene Kim addresses this as she states, despite critics' allegations, it does not lead to weaker candidates being hired or a loss in productivity in the firm. Along with the Title VII Act, which mandates non-discrimination regarding gender in the workplace, affirmative action serves as a leveler of the playing field of the college admissions process and the job market. This is in order to ensure that those who have struggled historically to reach the level of those in power get a chance to do so now. Through this, we are able to ensure that the population demographics match the sample that is pooled to be accepted to a college or hired to a firm. Next, I'm going to be talking about Kim's thoughts on family-friendly policies, as they really stood out to me. I've known that women are often punished in terms of wages, promotions, and workplace treatment due to their ability to become a mother. And this is important in itself, but what caught me off guard is how Kim addressed that both parents must be afforded paid leave and child-rearing benefits. She states that one must ensure that family-friendly policies do not reinforce the gender division of labor. Thus, part-time work should be available in high-paying fields. Both parents should be required to take alternating periods of use or lose paid parental leave, and families should not forfeit the higher pay of fathers who take such leave, and this can be found on page 251. Now, this is greatly important because if not, this further enforces the gender binary and the stereotypes that women are the ones to care for their babies. I now find myself to be a perfect example of this, as I have fallen to the ideas of this stereotype. I was so shocked by this quote because I had simply never thought about men taking leave while their wives went to work early on in babies' lives. However, I completely understand how this makes sense and find it beneficial and fair for both the parents and the child's lives. However, I completely understand as policy cannot be another enforcer of stereotypes at the home and the workplace. Now, the last category I would like to touch on is pay secrecy. On page 253 and 254, you will find these two quotes that state that even though the National Labor Relations Act, NLRA, of 1935 mandates that employees have the right to share information on wages, most employers either formally or informally forbid this. Feminists are concerned that women may be underpaid because they do not know they are paid less than men. And because the remedies under the NLRA are mild, limited to back wages minus earning in other jobs, employers commonly ignore this law. Now, requiring secrecy or threatening consequences implicitly or explicitly for the sharing of this information highlights an acknowledgement by those in higher positions that they are doing something immoral. They know that there is an inequality in their pay distribution or in the treatment of their workers, and therefore the spreading of information like this would give firepower to those who are getting the short end of the stick. Companies who have solid and fair reasoning behind their decisions would be able to handle an approach from someone who's earning less, with evidence for why that is, and maybe even information to what they would need to do in order to earn more. However, this level of secrecy creates an environment where that approach is not able to occur, and that people are not able to see the level of inequality they're facing. The fact that this wrongdoing is completely ignored as there are no consequences that are being performed a majority of the time highlights where our government funds are going and where our focus is and where it is lacking. The world may say they are working towards equality, but we must start by actually doing the little things before the big changes can become a reality. Therefore, my questions are, have you ever heard an argument from one source that made you believe and back that side of the argument, only to hear another that completely made you question all the ideas you had come to know? And my second question is, which of the three categories of solutions of Marlene Kim's piece have you heard about the most? Have you, your parents, or someone else you know had any experiences with enforcing existing equal opportunity, family-friendly policies, comparable worth, unionization, or pay secrecy? Thank you.